Hello and welcome. My name is Asad. You're watching the Best of Peace show on NextTV. Today I'm very excited to introduce a very talented book writer. Her name is Maheen Mazhar and her newly published book, Through Her Eyes. You must be thinking why about this book and what it has to do with the peace, because this is the Ambassador of Peace show. So for that, I promise you will not be disappointed for another 30 minutes. So without any further delay, let's meet with Maheen Mazhar so we can learn about her. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Asad, for the introduction. My name's Maheen Mazhar. I'm from Pakistan originally. I was born there, moved to New York at the age of 3. Been living in Virginia for the past 18 years.
Okay.
Went to NYU for my undergrad. Right now I work in fashion, PR in New York City. But
Interesting.
Writing has always been a passion of mine.
Okay.
And when I went to college, I realized this is something that I should talk about, being Pakistani and also being American, and how sometimes both of those identities kind of come to clash. And obviously, coming from Pakistan, you want to keep your roots, but at the same time, the American culture is very different. And as a young person, you're always, there's always things thrown at you that don't really go with your morals, and you kind of have to fight. So I thought it would be a really interesting topic to write about.
Okay, that's interesting. So is this your book?
Yes, right here, Through Her Eyes.
Okay. So what was writing this story so important? What really instigated you to write about this topic?
Thank you. So when I came into this started around middle school and high school. So when I was younger, I went to elementary school in Centerville, Virginia.
Okay.
Which is called Bull Run. And when my parents moved to Fairfax when I was around 13.
Okay.
So as a new girl in middle school, I kind of felt like the social scene was very different from where I came from. Like, everyone was already friends from elementary school. I was the new girl. So being the new girl, I didn't really find myself fitting in anywhere. I started observing a lot of things.
Okay.
And that's when I kind of started observing, that's the time when you have crushes and you have, you're going to this dance with so-and-so. And then the dating culture kind of comes in. And then that, in high school, that obviously amplifies a little bit. And you are expected to be a part of it, and if you're not a part of it, then you are looked as the weird one, or okay, you're not doing this, then you're wrong. Everyone else is right. So I always used to question those things, and that's when I started writing for myself. So I never thought that I would ever, publish a book for the world and have it out there. But then when I went to college, I wrote a lot of essays, personal essays, and my professor was like, I love the way the person thinks, but what influenced her thinking? Why is she the way she is? What made her come to this conclusion? So that's when I realized that if I'm going to write a book, I need to take you on a journey. I can't just be like, this is what Maheen thinks, or this is what a Pakistani American might think, coming from a different culture.
So just to recognize this for the audience. So is this book about your story?
This is my personal story. Yeah, so it's
that's
my
your
memoir.
personal story.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Wow, that's very encouraging for a lot of people to know that someone is not only just a book itself, is a story for someone we're gonna discuss. So I'm telling you that we're not gonna disappoint you.
I hope so.
So let's move on. So what inspired you to turn into writing? There must be some incident that happened. Is this something that you felt something during your school days?
Yes, definitely. I feel like, writing is one place where, let's say, I'm sitting in with a bunch of people, and everyone's, let's say, for example, with dating, and everyone's trying to tell their opinion, And if you're quiet in that situation, a lot of times people think like, you don't have experience, or you're boring, or, this person might just be boring. And but the point is, I feel like with writing, I was able to express myself a lot better. So even with the scenes, obviously, there's a narrative that's going on in the book, but at the same time, you can get inside the character's head to actually understand what she's thinking. And I feel like a lot of people who do come from not like, if you're not American and you come from a different culture, you hold those values really close to you, whether that be, Pakistani or whatever other nationality. So I feel like people who, do come from two cultures will really be able to relate to my thinking and the way I portray it in the book. Because that is something that influences us, right? We're not completely American. Obviously, we have some aspects that, we agree with, but at the same time, we hold our culture really close as well.
So you're talking about American high school dating culture. Is this something you would felt that you're not fit into that culture?
Yeah, I definitely did. I felt like everything was very temporary, even whether that be high school, whether that be college.
Okay.
It was more like, let's just have fun and we can worry about the serious stuff later. There's, people are changing relationships within months. And obviously, this is something that I feel like happens worldwide now, but it was definitely something I felt like I didn't agree with. And that's what really drove me towards writing.
I see.
Because I was more like, I want to get good grades and I want to go to, I was more focused on my goals, and a lot of people around me were focused on these things that seemed very important at that age. But to me, it was very different. To me, that wasn't like my priority.
I did get a chance to look at some of the topic when I was downloading the book. I did download the book though.
Awesome.
So what exactly why did you write so much about love and relationship in the book?
Because I feel like that is something I was questioned at a lot of times. When I was in high school, I still am actually questioned. I'm gonna turn 25 next week, and people in the Pakistani culture, people are like, oh, you should get married now. Just get an arranged marriage, right? Like where a lot of times, when I was going to New York University, when I got admitted, I was going in. My parents were gonna go and drop me, and in the midway through, we actually went to New Jersey to meet some relatives, and this relative was like someone that my family had known from a really long time. And I was telling, she was like, oh, you're going to college. What are you gonna do? I told her, I'm gonna be in the fashion industry. I want to do fashion PR and business. And the first question she throws at me is like, Beta, I just want you to know that at the end of the day, you're a girl and you're going to get married, and your husband's going to be your top priority. So you should think about that before you get into a career.
Yeah.
And at the age of 18, that was not my priority.
Of course.
So it was interesting because I always felt this clash where one culture expects me to do something else.
Right.
And the other culture is like, oh, you haven't dated 10 people yet? Oh, there must be something wrong with you because you are not doing this. So I was always like, this is something that came again and again, whether that be in high school, whether that be in college. And for me to, I wasn't really able to find people who thought like me, or, if it's a serious relationship, get in it. But if it's just temporary and for fun, then I feel like that is somewhere where my Pakistani upbringing comes in. I'm just like, this is not worth it.
So you started this book when you were in the college?
When I was in college, yeah.
Okay. So that is that because you already took that initiative, get into the fashion industry before you were kind of obviously challenging yourself with so many other things that how do you need to cope up with this two culture?
Yeah.
So it wasn't really tough for you at that time to go into the fashion industry?
Like from my parents' side?
Yes. No, only, also from your side too. What did you think is that going to be okay for you in the future as well?
To me personally, yeah, I did think that because my parents, when you're a kid, you think everyone's family is like your family. You don't really think about, oh, there must be, there's family pressures, there's other things, there's expectations. Right. When I got a little older, I think high school and later on, I realized, what a blessing it is to be born in the family that I was born in, because yes, I was born in Pakistan. My family is very close to Pakistan, but at the same time, they've always been like, follow your dreams, do what you want to do. We came here for you. And with my parents as well, I have a very friendly relationship with them.
That's cool.
Obviously, there is respect. There is, that value. But at the same time, we're very open because they've always told me, we live here in America in a culture which is very open. You're going to be exposed to everything. So you come home and you tell us what you did, or you tell us like what happened instead of me finding out from somewhere else. So from a family point of view, I think this is also one of the reasons why I was really ambitious from a young age, because my parents have always pushed me to follow my dreams. And like I said, when I met this auntie, it was very weird for me because, marriage wasn't something that my parents told me like, oh, this might affect your career.
Where did you meet that auntie, in Pakistan or here?
I don't know, New Jersey. New Jersey. And what's interesting? She was a teacher herself. She's been an art teacher herself.
Okay.
So I thought that was, and then because, she, and to my brother is actually 4 years younger than me. At that point, obviously he didn't know what he wants, but it just seemed like she was encouraging him a lot to follow what he wants to do. And for me, it was more like, you're a girl. And I understand, that still exists in our society, but that wasn't something that I faced when I was growing up. So it was very different to me hearing that.
Right.
And I thought it would be really interesting to kind of marry those two cultures where, you know, on the American side, you're expected like, oh, if you're 25 and you haven't dated 10 people, then something's not normal with you, versus that whole idea of, you know, the Pakistani idea that we have of arranged marriage and that being the only thing.
So you from Pakistan, you were in Virginia. When you started writing this book, you were in New York. And I would just happen to be there in New York in about 2 weeks ago.
Oh, nice.
So, and I passed by the NYU, and I did notice it's totally different culture.
It's totally different culture.
So, after writing this book, what do you think about the culture? Do you still think things the same, that people can easily cope up with this two culture? It depends on the cities where you're living. It also makes a difference where you live.
It does. Yeah. It does. Like obviously, I'm sure you've known in Virginia, we do have a lot more of a Pakistani community.
Right.
My mom's really involved in it, so is my dad. So I'm always, you know, it feels really much like home because it's very similar to what I would see in Pakistan. But obviously, like you said, New York, it's a completely different ball game. You know, you're exposed to everything there.
Exposed to everything.
And you know, it's a completely, and everything's really fast, right? So I think another thing that I personally don't agree with because of my Pakistani values, and it did come into play when I was in New York, was using dating apps to find people. Because New York, culture is like, you know, you're so on the go all the time. You're always like, I have to do this, I have to do that. You're so busy that people actually go to apps to find people because they don't have time to actually interact one-on-one. I know a lot of my friends in college who were like, okay, you know what, it's really hard to find anyone here. I'm gonna start going on an app. To me, that's really weird. Like I'm not that person. I need a face-to-face interaction. I can't just text someone and be like, okay, I think you're cool. And see, that's the thing. Being in this generation where I feel like that is something probably everyone my age has done. So that's something that I felt like, no, this is not something that I can do. And that's why probably I turned to writing, because I could express myself so much better than what people expect out of me.
So how do you balance between a certain culture expects of you? Like versus your own beliefs and point of views in life? Is there something you want to talk about it?
I feel like I said, I'm really grateful to God that my parents are very supportive. So they never, you know, they taught us, you know, these are our Pakistani values. This is what you should be doing. This is what you shouldn't be doing. But at the same time, there was no pressure of I have to fit into a certain way of being, right? So I feel like for me, I've always been a very like listen to my heart, listen to what I believe in kind of person. Right. If I can tell you a little bit from the book, before going to NYU, I was at VCU for 1 year.
Oh, okay.
As a freshman.
That's a good college.
Right? Yeah. And it was funny because I mean, I'm the eldest in the family, first granddaughter, first daughter.
Right.
So my parents obviously, it wasn't out of being protective, but out of love. It was hard for them to let go when I first was gonna go to college. And when I went to VCU, they were like, "Oh, it's only 2 hours away. You can come home whenever you want." And I was like, "Uh-oh, I don't want to come home whenever I want." You know, so that was an interesting experience. I actually had my grandma go with me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I wasn't living in the dorm. I was living in an apartment there.
I see.
So first day, I knew 2 people from my school that went to VCU. So I was hanging out with them, and they were like, you know, it was the day before classes, and they were like, "Do you want to go to a party?" And it was like, oh, I'm like, you know, first time away from home, frat parties, let's go. Right. So we were walking around Monroe Park, which is like a park that's near the campus, and it was really dark. I had no idea, you know, how to get back home, what the area was like. I had no idea. I just went because my friends were going. Right. And 1.5 hours we just spent walking from 10 to 11:30 to try to find a party. So we found one party which took like about 20 of the people that was with us, and then there was 30 of us who couldn't get in. So we kept on walking and walking. And then finally we came across this house where there were a bunch of guys outside who were drinking and going really crazy, obviously upperclassmen, not freshmen. And they were like, you know, we're only gonna take girls in. And we're only going to take girls who, like, you know, the less clothes, the better. When I got closer to that house, something, you know, my phone died. And then also something inside me was like, this is not right. I don't feel comfortable going here. Like, this is not okay. So then I lied to my friends, and I was like, you know, I have an 8 a.m. in the morning, which I did not have. Right. And I was like, I'm going to leave. And to be honest, I think this was around 11:30, 12 midnight. I didn't know how to get back at this point to my apartment because my phone died. So I made my way back to the Schaefer Dining Hall, which is like the dining hall on campus. I found someone there who had a phone on them, and I used their phone to call RamSafe. RamSafe was a bus that takes you within the campus, wherever, like whichever address you tell them, they'll take you as a safety. Like GMU also has buses and campus buses. So I went home. I got home around 1. And for some reason, you know, as an 18-year-old, when you don't go to your first party, for some people that can be like, oh, she didn't go, that's so boring. But for some reason, I felt very happy. I felt very satisfied when I came back home. So 4 o'clock in the morning, same night, I get a text message, VCU alert, saying that so-and-so, they have found a girl who was found unconscious on so-and-so block.
Oh, okay.
When I read the address, I was very, very shocked because it sounded so familiar to me. So I texted my friend who I was with the night before, and she goes, oh, this is the same address. You're right. We were there, and that was the same house that I left from. And I was like, wow, like it could have been anyone. You know, I mean, obviously these things happen. And going off of that, like, you know, being a teenager in this culture, being in high school and in college, you're always exposed to these things, whether that be drugs, whether that be drinks. And obviously, you know, at some point you're going to experience those things, but you want to, for me, it was always, it's not that I don't want to do it. It's more of like, I want to be in a safe environment when I do it. I can't do it with people who I don't know, especially, you know, people that I've never known or been with ever. So that was really scary. Obviously, I felt really bad for the girl, but at the same time, I felt very blessed that I made the right decision that night and I left that place.
So since you've been through with those situations, so if you could make the Western culture understand one thing, what would it be?
I feel like a lot of times, and I'm not trying to put anyone down, or I'm not trying to, you know, say that one way is wrong or the other is wrong, but, you know, a lot of times you feel like one way is the only way to be, right? Whether that be like dating, drinking, drugs, partying, whatever. They think that, you know, if you're doing it, you're cool. If you're not doing it, you're not cool. But there's other things that exist too, you know, like it's okay if you're 18, 20, in your early 20s and you're not engaging in those things. Or if you, because what I felt, but even in high school, I felt this is, like I said, forced assimilation. So like the idea that whatever they're doing is right, and if you're not doing it, then you're the weird one. So just more accepting of other cultures. And I feel like this is something I've noticed with a lot of my friends from New York are very, you know, they're either Chinese American, Pakistani American, Indian American. I feel like I connect more with them because we're able to agree on these things, right? We want to go out, but we want to stay in our limits. Like, it's okay, you know, even in the Pakistani side, I feel like, you know, I've had this happen to me where aunties come up to me and they're like, oh, she's lived in New York for 4 years. She must be very wild. And she must, like, you know, not know her culture, not know her limits. So it's both ways. And I feel like for both of those cultures, my message is like, you know, things can exist that are outside of the box.
Exactly.
And you, at the end of the day, as an individual, I feel like you have to find where the line is, because you're always going to be told about what to do, how to be, whether that be the American side or the Pakistani side. There's always going to be someone thinking like, oh, this is what you're expected to do versus what you actually want to do.
Exactly. So you also talk about faith in your book and the right timing. Can you elaborate about that?
Sure. So when I was in high school, I was, like I said, I did not really engage with the social culture. I was more based on grades, right? Taking AP courses, taking honor courses, being on the honor roll. So my goal was that I want to get the best grades, and I also want to get into the best of the best colleges. To which obviously, you know, it's funny, you know how Pakistani parents usually tell their kids, like, we want Ivy League and we want this. I was that girl, and my parents were like, you need to calm down. You need to take a step back and kind of relax. I was taking like 6 AP courses at a time, staying up until 2 in the morning, doing my homework and crying silently. Did not have a social life at all. And then at that point, when I gave it my all, I applied to a lot of Ivy Leagues. I applied to NYU as well. I got rejected by NYU. NYU was actually the dream.
Okay.
It was actually, so a little bit of backstory. When my parents moved to from Pakistan to America, we moved to New York.
Oh, I see.
So I've had a little bit of New York exposure in my early years as well.
I see.
So being in high school, I always knew that's where I want to go back, because that life, fashion industry was there.
Exactly.
As well as I felt like it was more fast paced than Virginia is.
Right.
So I wanted to go there, and I got rejected. And I feel like that rejection is what really took me down.
I see.
Is because I was, after doing everything that I was supposed to do, I wasn't expecting it, right? When you've given it your all, you don't expect something like that. And that really broke me in a sense. I became very negative. I was like, what's the point of putting in hard work when you're not going to get a result? Yeah. And I wasn't super religious at that point. Obviously, I used to read the Quran. I used to whatever my parents used to tell me, I used to do. But I didn't feel that connection with God. Later on, I went to VCU, obviously had those experiences that I told you about, but my mom always used to tell me, you're going to do the right thing at the right time.
Exactly.
And at that point, I didn't understand that, because I wasn't getting what I wanted. I was like, no, even how much effort you put in, you still fail, this, that, the other. But then so a year later, even when I went to VCU, I knew I wanted to transfer, and I got in. And when I got in, what the most wonderful part was that I didn't have to go and put an effort to find friends. I didn't have to put an effort to do things. All the things that I wanted to do suddenly started happening.
Right.
And that's when I realized oh, mom was right. There is a time for everything. And I think that's what strengthened my belief. And I always say I felt myself getting closer to God and going towards that side. But it also made me believe that there is a time. Because sometimes it's so easy to get frustrated when you don't get what you want. And I was at a very young age, I knew what I wanted. So not getting it, you feel like, this should happen right now. But it's not necessary for it to happen right now. There's a time for everything. And maybe it'll happen better than you think it, later on.
Right. So you talk about yourself in the book not engaging and believing the temporary relationship. I mean, you just mentioned a few things already. So what does culture mean? What does Maheen believe? That people should not get into the temporary...
As far as relationships?
Yeah.
So I've always, this is a really interesting question, because even till today I haven't found what I'm looking for. Still looking. Okay. I definitely, so I'm just going to be very open, high school, college time, I felt like everyone was very obsessed with the temporary stuff, right?
Right.
How many...
ये आप उर्दू में बताएं ताकि लोगों को पता चले कि you speak Urdu too.
Oh, okay, fine. So, college में, high school में, how do you say temporary in Urdu?
Temporary. Umar क्या कहते हैं उसको? Temporary को? Short.
आरजी. I always, मुझे लगा कि लोग ना बहुत आरजी चीज़ों में रहते हैं, जैसे अच्छा कितने लोगों के साथ घूमे हो, कितने लोग कि और वो चीज़ सेलिब्रेट होती थी कि अच्छा आपके 8 लोगों को डेट किया है, 10 लोगों को डेट किया है, और मुझे था कि why can't you want one? अगर आपने why can't we stay true to one person?
Exactly.
और वो चीज़ I feel like आजकल भी कल्चर में नहीं है. अब आप देखें जो हमारी मूवीज़ बन रही हैं, whether that be even Bollywood has caught up a lot, but also Hollywood में movies, एक time था where we used to have those love stories where it was one person forever.
Right.
अब क्या होता है, अब वो कल्चर ही चेंज हो गया है कि वो हुकअप कल्चर है, वो जी इसको भी डेट कर रहा है, उसको भी डेट कर रहा है. It's just so confusing now, and I feel like जितना वो मूवीज में और दिखाया जाता है वो चीज़ और नॉर्मलाइज होती है.
Is that has to do with the social media, you think?
I definitely think it's social media. It's also कि हमें क्या चीज़ cool लगती है, क्या चीज़ नहीं लगती है, right? 20 years ago, I always tell this to my dad. So my parents had a love marriage. Obviously, they met in college. But I feel like उनका time इतना innocent था कि फ़ोन पे बात कर ली वो काफ़ी था, या एक दूसरे को देख लिया रेस्टोरेंट पे. That was cute. That was something they used to look forward to. अब क्या होता है, अगर आपने सिर्फ हाथ पकड़ा है या आपने सिर्फ बात की है, you're made fun of.
Right.
कि अच्छा यार, this is all you've done. You've not done anything else. So I feel like everything has become so adulterated in a way that you're expected कि आप ये सब कुछ भी करोगे.
Right.
And if you're not doing it, then like I said,
you're not fit into the culture.
You're the weird one. You're the one. अभी भी, I mean, I'm not shy or ashamed to say this. I'm gonna be 25. I haven't dated anyone seriously because I have felt like वो चीज़, the thing that I was looking for, I didn't find.
Right.
And I feel like there's nothing wrong with having high standards. A lot of times you're told कि oh, what you want doesn't exist, or your standards are too high, you should lower them down. But it's like, why? Why should I? I mean, I don't think it's compromise that scares me. I feel like if it's the right person, obviously in any relationship, there is compromise. माँ बाप में भी होता है. You know, कभी कभार आप उनकी सुनते हो, कभी कभार आप अपनी सुनवाते हो. So that's in any relationship, but it has to be. It can't be this temporary culture where आपको पता ही नहीं है कि ये चीज़ last भी होनी है कि नहीं. It has to be something real.
So you talk about compromise. What is something Maheen won't compromise?
Something Maheen won't compromise on? Relationships.
Okay.
And love. One department in life where I will not compromise. And one of the reasons why I feel like I still haven't, been with anyone yet.
Actually, that's good. So what do you think people are missing nowadays? Everything being westernized, modernized, and everyone trying to fit in the same crowd.
So I would say two things. Going off of our last topic, I would say loyalty. Because अब वैसे मैंने बोला वो मजाक करता है उस चीज़ का, like, oh, you've been with the same person for so long. Recently I had a friend, she's been with somebody for 6-7 years now, who was telling me that, she was thinking that, oh, she doesn't know anything else, so she was like, oh, I feel like I'm bored, I should try something else.
Right.
And I feel like, obviously, being in a long-term relationship, things kind of, things don't always stay the same, but I feel like loyalty should be valued more because we live in a culture where we're so used to changing up things, right? Like if this doesn't work out, let's walk out of it. If this doesn't happen, and I was listening to someone, or I saw something on social media which I thought was very interesting. This guy was talking about this whole dating culture here in America, and he was like, it's okay to have options, right? Like if something's not working out, you're more than welcome to have those. But we're actually taught in a way that when things get difficult, let's get out of it instead of facing it because we have other options. So that has become a habit for people. So I definitely think I would love to see more loyalty in the world. Like, if you choose something, stick by it, whether that be a relationship, whether that be a belief. Because a lot of time what happens is, like, even if it's college culture or high school culture or just being who you are, sometimes you believe in one thing, but everyone else is doing something else, so you just jump on the bandwagon and you do what they're doing. So I feel like own up to it, own up to your beliefs, and it's okay. If what you're thinking is different than other people, then it's okay. That you should be proud of it instead of, hiding it.
So you talk about change, one thing. What change would you believe if you were to give it a chance, you would change?
In the world in general?
Yeah, exactly.
If I were to change something, I would definitely want to change. Change. Okay. I knew the answer to this, but also another thing I would want to change would be I think in Pakistan I can definitely say for one thing I would want to change the way that there's so many expectations of women. And the way they're implanted, I'm not saying, everything's wrong. Everything is not wrong. Obviously, every culture has good and bad in it. But I feel like, in general, there's a lot of pressure on women, whether that be being a good daughter, being a good sister, being a good wife. And a lot of times, those expectations kind of exceed their limits, where they're only seen as in those relationships. They're not seen as an individual. Right? Or what does this girl want? It's about fulfilling those roles of being a sister, being a mother, being a wife. And a lot of times there are roles that don't have to be gender specific, but we make them gender specific. For example, chai banana, roti banana.
Yeah.
And when I was in Pakistan last year, and there was this YouTuber who went viral, she was like, most people get divorced because they don't get garam rotis.
Yeah.
And I was like, but I understand. Ab the machine aa gayi hai.
Right.
So it's like, if the girl can do it, why can't the guy do it? I mean, that's what I've seen here. My parents got married in Pakistan, been living here for the past 25 years. When my dad used to get up and do the dishes, he goes and does the dishes. It's not because, it's not seen as a manly thing. It's because he's just trying to help.
Right.
So I feel like both gender roles, why do we have to define them? Why can't it be if we're partners who are going to manage this?
Exactly. So through this book, what are you expecting that will make a difference in this world?
I definitely hope that people like me who are Pakistani American, as well as people who are from a different culture, they feel more understood. One of the first responses I got when this book came out was, I have a lot of friends who are Chinese American, Spanish American. All of them reached out to me and they were like, I'm so glad someone talked about being from the two cultures.
Right.
Because no one talks about this. half of us who are growing up here, even when at school, there's a lot of diversity, especially in the Northern Virginia area. You see a lot of Muslim, you see a lot of Chinese. There's all sorts of ethnicities.
Right.
And I feel
But New York has more.
New York has more.
Yeah.
You're right. But at the same time, it's so interesting to me how they feel like there's no one to voice their side. A lot of people said, oh, I'm so excited to read this because someone's actually talking about being from the two cultures and trying to carry both of them instead of just being in the Western culture.
Right.
Because I feel like we're so influenced by the Western culture that we, like I said, that's the only thing that exists. So I really hope that those people, feel more understood. I hope that girls feel more understood, especially, Pakistani girls, as well as any, like, I know a lot of people who are, living here as Pakistani Americans, and their parents, in an effort to kind of, in an effort to keep them away from the Western culture, their parents decide to put even more restrictions on them.
Exactly.
Right? Which I feel like sometimes, obviously everyone has their way of doing things, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I feel like sometimes that backfires.
Right.
Because you're expecting the kid to not do this, not do that. But then what's going to happen is that they're going to do it behind your back. I have seen that as well. Right. Even in the book you'll read, there was a time in high school where I am a part of this fashion show, which I'm helping models walk the ramp. एक audition था. We're going to the audition, and there's this girl, hijabi girl, who comes, and she, for me that concept was that, I've always heard, once you wear a hijab, you carry it with respect. There's certain implications that come with it, and you have to carry those, right? So she comes, and there's always there's guys and girls, obviously, in the judging panel as well as on the audience. She comes and she takes her hijab off. She walks the ramp,
right,
and then the hijab comes back on. And to me, that was like, why do it then? Yeah. And and then I spoke to her about. I was very curious. I asked her. I was like, why? Like, why did you just do this? So she actually told me that this was not my choice. This was something my parents put it on me when I was at the age of 14. So obviously, then again, to her parents, that might be the right way. But I feel like when it's imposed like that, the value is very different than what if she herself went to it. You know what I'm trying to say? She probably would have more respect for it if she went to it herself, rather than her parents telling her, like, this is what you should do. Because at that point, it's like, you're finding ways to do whatever you want.
Exactly. So that's what you believe, that they will get people from the Pakistani community, they will have a very good lesson from this book. How about if Western people read this book? What do you think, what their feeling is going to be? I mean, what they think right now and what is going to change in their perspective?
I definitely think it will open a lot of minds.
I see.
I think so, because what I've experienced, even growing up in that culture and having being exposed, like I said, I feel like they think that what they believe in is right. Right? Everything's westernized. A lot of times in high school, I felt like I was in a bubble of popularity, a bubble of relationships, a bubble of this, right?
Yeah.
And like I said, if you're not doing it, then you're not right. So I feel like it will open people's mind. Like it's a different perspective. It's a different lens to look at it. Obviously, in this book, not everything Pakistani is right. Not everything American is wrong. There is a balance. But at the same time, obviously, because I was using my voice and my opinion, I have, kind of what seems wrong to me as a person is wrong in the book. And I feel like, some people will agree with me. Some people will have their own opinion, which obviously they're entitled to. But I feel like on both sides, whether that be Pakistani or American or anyone reading this, it will definitely open up a lot of minds. And I always say this is a coming of age story, so obviously it might be more relevant to people in teenagers, 20s who are young. But at the same time, I feel like even parents and older people can get a lot out of this book, because it's not just a journey of cultures; it's also a journey of finding yourself.
Right.
And like I said, there's that expectation of what the American culture expects of you, what the Pakistani culture expects of you, as well as what do you believe in as a human? Who are you?
So this book has everything for both either parents or the girls of your age, or the girls that are growing in the high school. So they have everything for them to follow, exactly.
Yeah, and I feel like for parents it'll be very interesting, because a lot of times when growing up here as first generation Americans, your parents don't know what you're
Exactly.
going through, or you don't, some people have that communication. I've always had that communication with my parents. My mom recently read this book. She was like, इसमें तो कुछ ऐसा है ही नहीं जो मुझे पता नहीं है. Because I was lucky enough to have that communication with my mom. A lot of people don't.
Good.
A lot of people don't have that. I recently had someone come up to me and tell me that, when my son was 14, I got him a phone. I'm not getting a phone for my daughter because she's a girl, and I don't want to tell her that.
Right.
And in my head, I was like, why? Like, why would you want to? Okay. And then she told me, like, when she got to middle school, people started bullying her for not having a phone. And that's when she found out, the mom found out, and the mom got her the phone. So it's like, have that communication with your kids. So if something's going wrong in life, they can come and tell you, instead of them going through a certain experience and having to face bullying for that, or having to feel like they're different.
But nowadays, not just a phone. The phone has a smartphone.
Yeah.
So with this situation, what do you think?
I just feel like, then again, there's nothing wrong with protecting, your kid. But to tell her that I'm not getting you a phone because you're a girl, that I feel like could have been handled in a different way. Like you can reword the situation and just say, like just be like, maybe your brother didn't even get it until a certain age. But don't make that person feel like, oh, just because you're a girl, I'm trying to keep you. And which is fine. As a parent, you have that right to have that opinion.
Right.
Just I wouldn't want to make if it was my daughter, I wouldn't want to make her feel any less in this situation for not having a phone.
Right. So
And what you said is right. Social media has gone so crazy nowadays. Even 5-6-year-olds watching things that were like, wow, like I didn't even know about this when I was 5.
I think we can just, we're learning new things. So what do you want people to take away from your story, and why they should read this book? That could be the last question for this show.
Awesome. So I definitely think people should read this book, because I want people to know that what is normal, or what is seen as normal, like, we're always told about standards. We're always told about, this is what works in this society, this is what works. Things can exist outside the box. And I feel like that's one of the reasons I wrote the book, is because I always felt like I don't fit into what is being expected of me in certain areas of society, whether that be the Pakistani side or the American side. So I really feel like, I hope this book urges people to find themselves and to actually stick by what they believe in, even if the world doesn't agree with them. Even today, like I said, even about dating, everyone has their own expectations, right? And a lot of times you're told, what you're expecting doesn't exist. But it's like, but if you really believe in it, it's okay. It's okay to think that way. Just because someone else has a different opinion, you don't have to change your opinion.
Right.
And I feel like people, so I really hope that people not only understand the Pakistani and American perspective, but also try to find what they believe in, instead of just following the crowd, instead of just doing what seems cool. That's boring. That can get boring.
Absolutely. I think it was great talking to you, and as I promised, we explored a lot of things, and obviously when you read this book, you will learn more about it. So definitely don't forget to read this book, and where they can put comments, if they need to put comments about the book, is once they start downloading from the Amazon, or? So
the book is now, it's on Amazon. It's also available at Barnes and Nobles, and it's also available through Lost City Books in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
So either way, leave reviews on Amazon. I would love that.
Okay.
You can also follow me on social media, on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Instagram is Maheen M1506. Twitter and Facebook would be Maheen Mazhar. So, yeah.
All right.
And stay in touch that way.
Thank you, Maheen, for coming here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.